Hey folks, this is Kalani. The release date for the Burning Crusade Classic expansion has been confirmed, and it's much earlier than many players thought it would be. We'll be venturing back through the Dark Portal on June 1st. So yes, those random leaks on the Battle.net launcher were in fact accurate. I guess someone pushed those through a bit too early, and then the dev team just said, what the heck, it's close enough anyway. Yes, the Burning Crusade Classic launches on June 1st. Who would have guessed? But that doesn't leave us with much time to prepare at all. That's 3 weeks from now, and we need to squeeze in a pre-patch in there somewhere too. Let's have a chat about what this release date means, when you can expect the pre-patch to go live, and some other details about the Burning Crusade Classic's launch, like how much character copies, level boosts, and the deluxe bundles are going to cost. First things first, June the 1st is just over 3 weeks away, which is super exciting for anyone who has been waiting and longing for their Dark Portal journey to start. There's not too much longer to wait. But is this release date perhaps a bit too early, or at the very least too short of a notice? A June 1st release date doesn't leave that much time for any significant preparation, especially when you consider that this is classic WoW we're talking about. Pretty much everything is slower than the retail version of the game, from leveling up characters to farming up some additional gold, getting professions already. It all takes significant chunks of time. Anyone waiting for a release date announcement to hop back into the classic scene to maybe try and get themselves ready for launch day will find themselves with very little wiggle room. I honestly cannot remember any other time when Blizzard have given us less than a month's notice for the release date of a major game installment. And while you might think that the Burning Crusade Classic is just an old game being remade, it will certainly still be a large release. If you remember back to the release of Classic WoW, that was absolutely huge, and the Burning Crusade expansion is one of the most talked about and fondly remembered expansions out of the entire list. People will flock back to Classic WoW servers. Players who weren't able to experience the Burning Crusade will boot it up for the first time. This will not be a small adventure. So why does it feel like the release date was kind of just pushed out there, almost like Classic TBC is an afterthought right now? It's not just about players getting ready either. The lead up to a game's release is the perfect time to build up hype. Usually we have a release date well in advance of a game actually releasing, so everyone can get their affairs in order, get some snacks ready, book some time off work if that's the plan, tell your significant other you might disappear into a fantasy world for several days and not be seen, and let the hype build and build and build. There's not really time for much of that with such a short notice period, which I think hurts the game more than anything else. Hype is important for game launches. That's why a lot of newer games have turned to streamers for their big advertisement pushes. Streamers are incredibly effective at creating and generating hype, if the game is good at any rate. A longer notice period gives players time to get together, make plans, get caught up, drag their friends and guildies into the mix, spam that one dude who promised he would never come back to the game, so he also gets hyped and joins you through the Dark Portal. Timing is important for these things, and it just doesn't seem to have been taken into consideration for TBC Classic. It's not just the release date that's the problem here though. The release date could have been perfectly fine if only they had announced it earlier. The release date schedule also leaves us with a very short pre-patch period of only 2 weeks. The pre-patch will start up on May 18th, and we will have 2 weeks to play around with the changes before the expansion goes live. That's kind of whatever for the most part, but the real problem with a short pre-patch comes with the new race and class combinations. Leading up to TBC Classic, we were told that instead of opening them up at launch, the 2 new races of the Blood Elves and the Draenei would open up with the pre-patch to give players who want to reroll a chance to level up and join their friends marching through the Dark Portal. A 2-week pre-patch doesn't really give you enough time to get that done comfortably. I mean, you absolutely can get a Blood Elf Paladin or a Draenei Shaman or any other class if you just want to reroll to the new races up to level 60 in 2 weeks. It's doable for sure, but it's not going to be a smooth, easy, laid-back ride. It's going to be hard grinding, getting boosted through dungeons, rushing as much as possible to level up in time. Who wants to grind that much right before a new expansion launches? That's a recipe for burnout right there, which is going to be even worse in TBC Classic because there's going to be far less content overall when compared to the initial Classic release. A longer pre-patch could have eased players back into the game, let groups of friends chill out and level up some new races while getting excited about TBC and the adventures to come. 2 weeks just doesn't give you any breathing room, which is a real shame in my opinion. Then there's also the question of whether the game is even ready to launch. The Burning Crusade beta has only been open since the end of March. That means it's been up for just over a month at this point. I know that Classic TBC is very different from a newer expansion because the entire expansion is already laid out. The data is there, the information is there, the changes, the zones, the raids, the bosses, the loot, it's all set in stone already. All it really needs to do is work properly with the current WoW structure. Maybe the testing has been going smoother than we expected, or maybe the dev team really refined their classic recreation process and it just doesn't take as long to get a classic game working these days, but 1 month seems like a quick testing cycle for an entire expansion. Obviously we still have some testing time left, but with the release in 3 weeks, what can they really change at this point for launch day? I've heard mixed things about the current state of the TBC Beta, but I haven't heard about any major game-breaking bugs, so that's good news at least. It's also worth noting that the dev team is always several builds ahead of the actual testing server builds. They're ahead in-house, and I would hope that the dev team wouldn't push this through if they didn't think it was ready. So I'll believe in them on this one, even if the beta does seem to be incredibly short. So with all that being said, why would the dev team potentially want to rush the Burning Crusade's release date? Probably because they need to speed up their content flow. The first factor in here could be the quarterly earnings calls. For any of the Burning Crusade Classics numbers to be reported, both increased players and increased revenue generated, in the next quarterly call, the expansion would have to release in June. That's the latest month it can release. So that might be one part of the puzzle, but the other piece is going to be related to Shadowlands. In the recent interview with Preach, Ian Hazacosta said there would be a significant gap between the Burning Crusade Classics launch date and patch 9.1's release date for Shadowlands. Obviously, we don't know what a significant gap is, but for the most part, I would assume it's long enough so players won't have to choose between playing the Burning Crusade Classic or playing patch 9.1. Which makes sense, I guess. They want to show their new content is pushing gameplay, engagement and retention, and if everyone is busy playing TBC when 9.1 launches, or too busy playing 9.1 when TBC launches, their numbers might not look as good. I would also hate having to choose one over the other, so I'm actually happy with this decision. But in order to get 9.1 out as quickly as possible, they also need to get TBC Classic out as quickly as possible to ensure they keep a large gap between the two content drops without delaying 9.1 too far into the future. Shadowlands has already gone 7 months without a major content patch. They can't really afford to delay it any longer than necessary. So that might also explain the rushed TBC Classic release date, which definitely isn't ideal for anyone who is hoping to get some characters leveled up or some general prep done before the game goes live. The release date isn't the only factor causing a bit of a stir with TBC Classic though. We now have information on how character copies are going to work, as well as the details for the level boosts and the deluxe edition of TBC Classic. If you're not sure what the character copy thing is about, when TBC Classic launches, all of the Classic servers will continue on and become TBC Classic servers, but Blizzard has created an option to keep your characters in the original Classic state if that's something you would rather do, and freeze your character in time instead of moving forward. But the catch here is that you have to choose what each character will do before you can play it again. There will be separate Classic vanilla servers, so if you send your character over there, you won't be able to play your character in TBC Classic and vice versa. Any characters you take forward into TBC Classic won't be able to play in the vanilla only era unless you fork over some extra buckaroos. You can copy a character to the vanilla Classic servers to preserve the true Classic experience and play that same character in TBC Classic if you pay for a character copy. Right now they're set at $35 each, and that's per character you copy. So if you have multiple characters that you want to copy over to TBC and to static vanilla servers, it's going to cost you a hefty chunk of change. Just one character copy is almost the same price as the standard Shadowlands expansion, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Personally, I think this won't end up being a massive issue for most players. Keeping a character in Vanilla Classic sounds kinda boring and would only appeal to a small set of niche players in my opinion, but the idea of it is kind of cool. I'm sure many players would have at least considered it if the price tag wasn't quite as high, but with it being set at $35 per character, I think the vast majority of players just won't bother. They will take their characters into TBC Classic and forget about Vanilla. That means these new Classic Vanilla servers will probably be ghost towns for their entire existence, which seems like a bit of a shame, but the dev team surely can't expect players to fork over $35 per character to copy over there on the off chance that they might go back someday. It seems ludicrous. So this service being expensive might just end up killing the potential of Vanilla Classic servers going forward. Then we also have the price of a level boost in TBC Classic. It's worth noting that you can only use one level boost per account for TBC Classic, so you won't be able to use this to level up a whole army of alts, but it can be used to skip over the Vanilla Classic leveling experience to jump straight into TBC Classic if that's something you want to do. A level boost will cost you $40, so at least it's not as pricey as the retail level boost, but that's still a lot of cash to fork over if you want to quickly get caught up and ready to jump through the Dark Portal with everyone else. So if this was something you were hoping to take advantage of because you weren't playing throughout Classic, but you still want to join some Classic friends in TBC, now you know how much it's going to cost. And then there's also the Burning Crusade Classic Deluxe Edition. This is pretty typical for a box set thing until you remember that TBC Classic doesn't have a box price, so this Deluxe Edition is pretty much just for the extra goodies. It currently costs $70 and includes a Phase Hunter mount for TBC Classic, a Phase Hunter mount that you can use in Shadowlands, a Dark Portal Hearthstone toy for use in TBC Classic, the Path of Illidan toy for use in TBC Classic. This one leaves little Fellfire imprints wherever you run, and the previously talked about level boost and 30 days of game time. That seems kind of pricey when you compare it to the Shadowlands box sets, which also included the box price for Shadowlands. This deluxe set is also going to be so much more expensive if you don't actually care about the boost. That's where most of the value is coming from here, so I guess it depends on how badly you want those Phase Hunter mounts. They do look cool, there's no denying that, but $70 seems quite steep for a deluxe edition of a classic game. If you're going to buy and use the boost, it gets a bit better, I guess. The $40 boost and the $15 worth of game time bring the rest of the goodies down to just $15, but that's also assuming you're okay paying $40 for the boost in the first place. I am very curious to hear your thoughts on all this. Do you think $70 is too much for the deluxe edition? How do you feel about $40 for the level boost? Has this turned the Burning Crusade Classic release into one big cash grab, or do you think these values are fine for those who want to pay for extra collectibles? I'd love to know how you're feeling about all of this. But that's all the info we have about the Burning Crusade Classic's release date, the pre-patch date, what you can expect, and how much all of those extra services are going to cost you. What do you think of TBC Classic's release date? Were you expecting the expansion to launch later to give players more time to get ready and to level up through pre-patch? Or do you just want TBC Classic to launch as quickly as possible so you can jump right into the fun? Did any of this news change your plans for the expansion launch? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who has subscribed on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.